Welcome back to the Marketing Grind, where we explore the daily grind of B2B marketing from inside the trenches, talking about what's working, what's not, but most importantly, why it all matters. Once again, here with my brother Gary. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing pretty good. Thank you for asking. Glad to be here on this pod with you.
Yeah, me too, man. Really good topic today, super philosophical. And I think it's really why a lot of people get into marketing and really it becomes the core of why we do marketing. But before we get into any of that, I'm just teasing a little bit.
You're
Uh,
such a tease.
I'm such a tease. But before we get into it, let's just get into the coffee aspect
Oh
because
yeah.
we're on the grind. We're working. Uh, what are you drinking, man?
I am drinking a beautiful cold brewed coffee from Atlas Coffee. These beans are from Veracruz, Mexico. So Atlas sends me beans from all over the world. Extra dark roast. This baby is bursting with flavors of milk chocolate, caramel, a little bit of stone fruit, and just a hint of spice. It is absolutely perfect. So good. What are you drinking now?
Awesome. Yeah, no, I just went out to the local coffee shop. One of my go-tos, Surfer's Point in Ventura. It's just their iced coffee. It's straight and simple, little bitterness, roasty but smooth. Anything you look for in iced coffee. You can put a little milk and sugar in there. Do what you want to do to it, but I'm drinking it straight up.
Nice.
Yeah. So for this topic, we a lot of times when we think about good marketing or really great marketing, it's really led with empathy, right? And that's what I really wanted to dig into for this session was like let's dig into the mind of our audience. As marketers, we want to understand like what are the pain points, what are the problems. Let's really delve into like what do they care about, and really discover like how we can adopt those insights or take those insights and adopt those into our marketing techniques to really speak to them in the right way. And so I know this is something you're like so big about. Um, so I really wanted to dig into this right away. I think we can just get right into it. Empathy, customer understanding, all that good stuff. Where do you stand on that right now?
Yeah, I think you said it best when we were talking about this topic just a few minutes before we started. It's like this really is like what this podcast is all about. Like it's all about like tapping into the humanity in marketing, and that's what empathy is all about. Is like humans trying to understand humans. Um, but it's interesting, when I was thinking about this, uh, it is really important to me, like you said. But I think I went probably like the first 15 years of my career without ever thinking about this at all and just
Me too.
thinking tactics, strategy,
Yeah.
like quality was always at the forefront, but like never a question of like what is the other person on the other side of the screen going through, who are they, what are they doing, how do we drive value, and so it's a little bit of like a recent revelation um, on my end, and it felt like a pretty profound moment when I realized it, that like if you want to do good marketing today, if you want to cut through the noise, like I feel with the digital world in the state that it's in, there's just a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of content that really understanding like the context of the person you're speaking to in their worldview is the only way that you're going to stand out. And honestly, I try to go as long as I can in every episode without bringing up Chat GPT or AI, and I think I made it like 3.5 minutes. But with with content exploding on the web from like AI produced materials, like this is the only way that you can cut through that, because at least at this moment in time, there's a limit to what AI is able to do on the empathy side, and we need to lean into whatever human advantage we can get when it comes to content and impact in marketing. So
let me cut into that a little bit. Like when we think about empathy, like in the traditional marketing funnel, it's very different than like your typical like maybe consumer marketing standpoint. You know, when you're looking at like these especially long sales cycles, big long-term value deals, very sales-led B2B motions. It's so different when you think about empathy in those states because not every business is the same, or you're really looking at a business standpoint. You're not looking at it as a consumer, right? So like um, there's variables, and different orgs have different pain points, operational scales, strategic goals. And so how does empathy sort of play into like the traditional marketing funnel, and really
yeah,
how does
there's
it
a
switch it
couple
up?
issues I have with the traditional marketing funnel. And I'll just there basically there's two things here. One is that the big secret that marketers can let you all in on is that the customer journey is not linear. So that like really simplistic, really like nice funnel model where someone goes from top, middle to bottom, it doesn't happen that way in real life. You're constantly bouncing in and out from different channels and different mediums, different devices, attributions all over the place. Like you just don't know. It's not a perfect world. So that model is too simplistic to account for complex sales scenarios. And then the other thing is like if you try talking to a salesperson or a customer success person and you start talking to them about like mid funnel content, like good luck getting them to understand what that means. But if you start kind of talking about it in terms of, looking at it in terms of like the real world, in terms of how people discover um, and understand the needs that they have in their day-to-day job and how they can um, overcome challenges and how they get that promotion or achieve that revenue goal or whatever the case may be, that is language that anybody could
Yeah.
understand. So
So let's go through that a little bit. Like that, take us through that, like that step by step or that stage by stage process, because I think that's, as a marketer, that's what you're wondering. Like, where do I infuse content here? Where do I deliver this touch point here?
yeah,
Like, what does
so
that look
this
like?
is why I really like the 5 stages of awareness for kind of helping organize my thinking here. And I got to give a shout out to my boy, Eugene Schwartz, 1996, his book, Breakthrough Advertising. I haven't read it, but I am well aware of the model that he talks about in that book. And I just want everyone to know that I did not create this, that it is from that book. But basically, it breaks down awareness.
1966, 1966,
What did I say? 96?
96. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. 1966. It's old school, baby. Um, so, yeah, it basically breaks down awareness into 5 different stages. And I like this a lot more because it gives you kind of a more empathetic look at the customer journey. And so, what I like to do is actually layer this into the AIDA model. So, in the awareness stage, at that kind of first level, you have problem unaware, where people are just not aware of the problem. And this is like your classic startup marketing scenario where a disruptor enters a market and tries to show the market, that the audience, that there's a better way, and that they're uh, before they can say, hey, we sell this, we do this, they have to talk about like what problems they solve, and like what is the world that they enable for their particular customers.
Yeah.
So essentially there's a level of effectiveness when you can market against a problem versus marketing your solution. Instead of saying, hey, buy from us, like you can really build a lot of credibility, especially in like, you know, high LTV buying scenarios where you can kind of nurture with content and messaging that speaks to the problems and challenges, aspirations and interests that you're marketing against. The second stage is problem aware. People are aware they have a problem. They have not yet identified a solution. This is a pretty small stage, I would say, because if the problem's big enough and worth
Yeah,
marketing against and
they're
having
looking
and building a
around. They're
company
looking around
against,
for stuff. Yeah,
they're going to move into solution seeking pretty quickly. But there is an element of people being in that stage, but I'd say it's pretty small. The next stage is when you move from like awareness into interest. Like, okay, I have a level of interest. Like, there's buying intent in some temperature, and that's what they call the solution aware phase. And this is essentially you're aware of your problem and you're in the process of discovering and understanding the potential solutions that you have at your disposal. This is where, like, you know, at least 50% of marketers tend to camp out and default in this
yeah.
stage
This
because
is the
buying
demand
intent
gen,
exists.
right? This is the
Yes,
demand
exactly.
gen stage for a lot of marketers.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, I feel like this is where a lot of the activity happens. When we talk about classic channels like PPC and SEO, they tend to really primarily focus around this level of awareness. It's big, it's important, but there's so much more if you kind of start earlier on in those stages and then even later on. So the next stage in the process kind of falls into the desire category in the AIDA model. It's product aware. So people become aware of your solution through your marketing, right? So they have a problem, they've identified it, they've understood their kind of landscape of solutions, and now they're aware of you. Great. You're one of maybe several options that they're thinking about, and not just
Yeah,
competitors here. We're talking alternatives, DIY, solution, services versus software. They're really kind of surveying the landscape and they haven't decided which way they're going to go. This is where you really have to sell kind of upsides, benefits, and fit. Really like fit. Like, this is where you're kind of saying like we're the right fit for what you specifically in your particular company are trying to achieve. And then the last stage is the action stage, is where obviously people are taking action in the 5 stages of awareness. This is referred to as most aware. This is when they understand your solution, they're bought in mentally. They're like, we know this is, if we're going to take an action, we're going to go with these guys, but they have yet to take action for a variety of reasons. Is it budget? Is it timing? Is it leadership? Whatever. But the person who is on the other side, they've understood that, like, when the time comes, this is the company. And this is like the coveted kind of area in marketing that you want. You have that like brand affinity. Um, they're not even developing brand affinity with customers. As long as you have a good service and good like customer experience, part's easy. I'm diminishing that, but from a marketing standpoint, it's easy. But non-customers who have affinity for your brand, that's the holy grail. It's hard to get to, and that's really the model that I think like essentially oozes the need for empathy at every single stage. It forces you to think through what mindset is that person in, is that audience segment in at this level of stages, and what are the things that they need to hear, what are the things that they need to see to move them from one stage to the next.
yeah,
That was an exercise I went through with a client project about 2 months ago, and it was like, it blew my mind. It has changed everything for me, and I feel like a different marketer on the other side of it.
yeah. No, that's great. I think I love the it oozes. Like the words you use. Just,
Yeah. You got to
but
feel it, baby.
but totally, totally. It's funny, and I totally agree because I think like at the end of the day, it's like you want to create these like empathy led journeys for a customer, for a prospect, essentially a potential customer, with those appropriate touch points that resonate with where they are and not just where they hope they'll go. Because
Yeah.
we can promise all we want, but like, where are you today? Like, how can we help you today? Where can we get you to the next step? Let's not, think so far down the road to get you to be a customer. Let me help you to get to, through the steps that you took us through, the problem aware, solution aware. How do we do those things? There's a whole bunch of tactics that
Yeah.
marketers can use to do that. And And yeah, like in those steps, it's really highlighting those, like, what are the inefficiencies, like what are the gaps, the emerging challenges that people are facing, in their own jobs, in their day-to-day jobs, and how can we as marketers help to guide them to, from that unawareness stage to that recognizing, hey, like there's, like, I have a need here, I have a problem, and I don't know how to fix it. Let me research it. And how do we get our solution as a marketer? How do we get our solution to be in the forefront of that conversation? But leading with empathy, not just, I think the old school tactics are just like, let's just serve them ads and get them to book
Mm-hmm.
a demo and all this stuff. How do we educate and do all these different things? And yeah, I think it's part of that, like, traditional funnel per se, but it's really like taking them out of like maybe like a 3-4 step process and being like, all right, at this specific stage, here are the different things I want to deliver to you to help you better understand the problem. um, it really kind of brings me into sort of the traditional narrative design framework, right? Of like breaking the status quo. Like I've been harping on this for a long time, in marketing. But it's like the new world versus, or the old world versus new world. How are we doing things today? Like, what are the current state of problems, and then really trying to help them see what is that future state where your problems are overcome, and really painting that vivid picture of the tangible benefits and the transformation, like this whole new reality that they can experience, essentially, that your solution or service provides. And I really think that still is, it's an old concept per se, but it's still very much in play here in 2024.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not fully up to speed on kind of that whole framework and what it all consists of, but I get the concept. And I think what like the model, the empathy led model that we're talking about, just what it does is it elongates things. It kind of like expands that out a little bit more intentionally, that maybe the entire kind of concept aligns really neatly. I'm not really sure, but it expands out into very specific areas because painting the picture of the old world is great and framing the new world is awesome too, but you still have to get someone to want to go on that journey, and you have to understand that there's multiple paths to get there. So you need to be the signpost, you need to be the map, you need to figure out like what you're going to do to get them there, right? So just saying old world versus new world, I get it, but there's like so much in between that I think that's where this model is kind of like helped me start illuminating what are the things I need to be saying. And I think you framed it pretty well in when you said, you know, where a customer is versus where we hope they'll go. And I think that's like, that says it all. And I think a great way to like exemplify that is in this client project that I was in, startup, got the kind of 5-page website that slim bare bones, like talks a lot about like who they are, what they've enabled for their small group of clients so far, and everything is just like book a demo, book a consult, Calendly link. Like there's
Yeah,
you're taking people from like initial impression to like
to be like,
let's go do this thing.
yeah,
And
let's
like
talk right
this is
away.
a even though the value prop is massive and they have kind of like a great kind of no risk trial type of thing, um, implementation of their solution is still pretty high. Like they need buy-in, they need there's a roadmap to implementation. Like there's still like costs to implement. So getting people like saying, we want you to book a demo, like this is where we want you to be, but you're here, like there's a disconnect there. And so what we had to do is
Yeah,
we had to build the entire like conversion pathway of like, let's not ask people to book a demo on first impression. Like let's just not even get them to sign up for an email list. Like, let's just get them to click the read more on the LinkedIn post. What if we thought about that? And then we retargeted that group of people and we had them take the next step and the next step and the next step. And we built on that tangentially so that um, we got to the place where we could earn the right to be able to say, here's the call to action that we really want you to make. Um, and not we're not interrupting you and kind of like forcing it down your throat. We've got you to the place where like we actually feel like you'll feel value just by us saying we have a solution now. Like we've painted that old world of problems so well that like you'll feel grateful to see that we have an easy way for you to like start the conversation on getting a solution in place for your org. That's the world that we're trying to create on the marketing side. I think in my mind for this type of like high LTV like complex sales process B2B scenario.
Yeah, and I think that completely works with that because it's like the only way that you can paint the picture of the new world while referencing the state they're currently in is with content and with like this like higher funnel type educational material to say like here's where we're going, and then eventually utilizing the tactics within marketing with retargeting and whatnot to then bring them to this point where you can say, well, here's the new state, like here's what we're offering.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, like with the framework, the narrative design framework, that is a I only studied that when I was doing product marketing,
Mm.
which is like which went against everything that like any I shouldn't say it went against anything that demand gen would want. But demand gen on demand gen side, it's like here's the asset. We're running ads on it. We're looking for search intent. We're going aggressive,
Yeah, it's
which is yeah,
volume MQL.
exactly. And so when I got into the product marketing side, it was like no, like there's a story to tell here, and the
Yeah.
story is really led with the customer, and which is where I think where it clicked for me, where it was like product marketing can influence all aspects of marketing, can influence all aspects of sales and product to be like, hey, like we're thinking too much about like what we want. We're not thinking enough about what the customer wants and what the customer needs. And so let's do more research. Let's talk to them. Let's do more surveys. And so, that's why like this whole topic of empathy, leading with empathy, really resonated with me was because that's what I got into, in the last couple of years was customer focused marketing,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to inform then our prospecting and our net new uh, inbound activity and all that stuff was let's lead it with what we know about from our customers. So it's huge just information bank is talk to your customers, learn what they, why they use your product, why they wanted your product in the first place, what are those pain points, what are the problems, and then then you can really help to solve them in your messaging and your positioning.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. It's like to kind of like wrap it all up to make it actionable. You need voice of the customer. You need research, qualitative research. You need surveys. You need a pretty tight connection to your sales and success teams
Oh yeah,
to get that feedback loop coming back in. Um, those are crucial. So I think that kind of like is the final piece to it all is like, how do you get there? Like you get there through qualitative understanding.
yeah,
And so there's
totally.
multiple tools at your disposal. I think even like, I mean, just from what I know about Prop Fuel and the product you guys work on, like there's an element to that too, right? Like, I mean, it's not being always being used for marketing purposes, like it's being used for product like association improvement type of stuff, like programming things, but I'm sure there's marketing tiebacks to at
Yeah,
least some of the most savvy customers you guys have.
yeah, it's actually pretty interesting because like we use Prop Fuel as a marketing tool. Um, but and so like I'm, in my marketing experience, that's what I'm using it for. Like, having call to action buttons and hey, download the recording or download the SMS report or something like that. Um, but that's not why Prop Fuel was built. And so I started really understanding that the way I was using Prop Fuel as a marketer is not the way that like our customers should be using Prop Fuel. So I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, I need to sort of taking this under uh, taking this other philosophy of, the whole platform is built upon asking questions and getting insight and listening. So it's like, hey, I can still give people, the assets and things that I want to give them, but I also want to get something back. And how do I sort of frame things in questions to get more insight? And that insight leads to like sales context. I think the best example was after a webinar, our most recent webinar. Typically, I would just send out the recording, send out the slides. Here you go. Download it, share it with coworkers. But then we had an internal conversation of like, that's great, but what if we can ask them? Because the webinar was about using SMS text messaging for member engagement. And so the question was like, or the conversation was essentially, well, can we ask them a question about what do you intend to do with SMS? Do you want to, you're going to bring it back to your team and talk about it? Do you want to, demo it further? You're not going to do anything with it at all. And that's how we, that was a big pivot for us. The way that I had set it up in the first place was, oh yeah, I didn't really think about it in that context of, yeah, let's ask them a question and let's see who responds. And when we do our sales follow up, we have more insight, more data to use to be like, hey, I saw that you're going to take this back to your team to talk about. Um, Here's some more resources to maybe help you. So kind of just help the sales team. Obviously, we had like hit my microphone there. We had like a follow up landing page that gave them some additional resources, but also give that data to the sales team for their own outreach to say, hey, we saw that you were going to take this back to your team as well, and just it was great for more personalized follow up. So,
Yeah.
and that's why, like, I was like, oh shit, Prop Fuel. I got to think about it outside of my own marketing, mindset of being more of an engagement tool, and it's opened my eyes a little bit to what our own solution can do from a marketing perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all about empathy and kind of circling it back to kind of what do they need? Right.
Yeah,
So, like,
like I totally
yeah, if
just
you have
thought
a,
about it like, hey, I just needed here's the info you wanted, boom, gone. Um and yeah, like the way that we switched it up was very empathetic. Was like, hey, here's the info, but like we want to learn more. Like we're asking a question, and I think it goes
Mhm.
back to like just when you're like in a conversation with anybody in person that you haven't, especially you haven't seen in a while, and they're asking you questions like, oh, this person's really interested in me. I like that. It kind of digs into your psyche a little bit, and it's just kind of thing how we're built. Like we want to provide feedback, we want to feel heard, and we want things that we want at the right time. So it's all kind of built upon that empathetic, philosophy.
Yeah, it's a good point. And kind of like as we're kind of going full circle on it all, is like maybe it's not enough just to be empathetic, but like to show empathy, right? So like we've talked this whole time about like using empathy, but like what is it like to show empathy? So like how do we reflect that that mindset back to the customer through value add content or more personalized experiences or more I don't know, just even more targeted sales outreach. Like let's reflect that back to them. Let's bring it full circle, and it's
Yeah,
not enough to do it and be it. You have to show it too.
yeah. It was like super eye opening to me, and it shouldn't have been because granted, I've been in this job for about 4 months, so like, cut me some slack here. But it was like, Yeah, like this is what this platform is built upon is the personalization, the contextual outreach, um, providing things to people when they need it or they want it the most. And it's not just like your normal broadcast tool. It's very customized to be an outreach or a conversational platform, that's very contingent on answers that these people are putting in, and so they get very customized responses based on that. And it's like, this is, man, that's the game. That's cool. This ties into everything that I love about being a marketer is the empathetic, contextual personalization aspect.
This episode brought to you by Prop Fuel. All right, the commercial's over. Let's bring it home.
Yeah, let's bring it home. No, this is great. I love it. Yeah, we've talked about this for a long time. Figured we just bring it all into one long episode. We thought it'd be short.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's going to be long,
yeah, for
but
sure.
that was
Cool.
cool.
Well, I'll throw this out there to anyone who might be listening and might be interested in kind of learning more. Um, if you email me, we'll use my Gmail, gmagnone@gmail.com. I will send you kind of a visual model of what this framework looks like, that, how I applied it in our marketing strategy process that served as kind of a um, jumping off point for developing messaging, marketing campaigns, content strategy, etc. And it'll help you kind of see like how we can use this in developing a model and a way of thinking for our marketing strategy at our company. So hit me up and I'll share with you what I can.
Awesome. And if you want to learn more about Profil, go to www.profil.com.
Till next time, my friend. See you
Yeah,
later.
good talk, man. Catch you
All right.
later.
Bye bye.
See ya.